Hello and welcome to the second episode of Capecord Referendum, our podcast on the Capecord Discord server. So we are sorry that this episode has come 2 weeks late. We were hopefully going to have an episode for you last week. However, there were recording issues, so we're trying to make up for it with this week's episode. So one issue we discussed in last week's episode, which we went into in great depth, was the election prospects of the different pro-independence parties in the Cape. Obviously, there are the Cape Party and the Freedom Front Plus. However, there are also other parties that are sort of pro-independence, like the Cape Coloured Congress. And then you've also got the DA, which is pushing into that pro-independence direction. However, they still haven't got there yet. We know that there's a number of DA MPs and councillors who are very on board with the independence message, and the party is possibly within the next few years going to call a referendum. I mean, there are a number of ways that we can see the DA pushing for a referendum now, and one of them would be either within this parliament, the independence groups like the CIAG and Capex can put enough pressure on the DA that they force a referendum by 2024, or the Cape Party and the Freedom Front Plus are able to push the DA below 50% in the province in the 2024 provincial elections, which would, force them into a position where, in order to remain in power, they've got to, accept the independence movement's demands and call a referendum. Now, I think we could really, in this 2021 election, in a lot of municipalities across the Western Cape, we could see a taste of what's going to come. So if you look at the election results from 2019, the Freedom Front Plus, they came about third place in about 15 or so municipalities, maybe even more. So if they're able to grow on that in the municipal elections, if they're able to gain a significant number of councillors, then in a number of these municipalities, we could see the DA under 50% and being forced into coalition with the Freedom Front Plus, which may create a precedent for the 2024 election. So that's something to look for. That's something to look to. We had Marabane, who said that in Drakenstein, he predicts that the Freedom Front Plus will make big gains there, and it will be at the expense of the DA. The DA is going to lose a lot of support in that municipality, and I feel the same may happen in the Swartland. If you look at the Swartland, the Freedom Front Plus, even based on 2019 election results, would have won enough votes to obtain a seat on the council, and they're going to gain, I think, substantially a higher vote share this time around. But what's your thoughts, Unati, on this? Well, how do you see these elections turning out? Because they're now going to be delayed as well, which is the other big news that broke over the last week. They're going to go from October to potentially as late as February, which might be good for us because it gives us more time to mobilize and get active. But yeah, what's your thoughts on this?
Oh yeah, well, welcome to everyone who's listening or who happens to be listening to this podcast. You basically summarized very nicely the overview of the whole election vibe or atmosphere in South Africa, basically, especially politics that are surrounding Cape independence and the parties that are involved or who are interested in Cape independence. So yeah, it is, as you say, the DA is being diluted by the FF plus, and the FF plus. The reason why, in my view, really, or actually in anyone's view, this should make sense. The reason why the FF Plus is diluting the DA votes or even the ANC votes for that matter is because they have a sense of credibility and their message is quite clear. They have even though some people or a person might not fully understand why they would be voting for the FF Plus, for example, they have this strong sense or this strong aura around them, which I can't really explain it, but there's just something about them. So as much as the DA is trying by all means to market itself as the party, the go-to party that people should be voting for their future to be realized, or for a better South Africa, it basically that kind of messaging from the DA as a party for South Africa, it's one of the contributing factors in them having their votes diluted. And of course, there's elements such as Patricia de Lille and the Good Party, that too is has had a hand in diluting the votes from the DA as well. So they are in a very difficult spot where they have to. It's that thing where they are damned if they support Cape independence, they are damned if they do not. So they it's a very tricky position for them, but they just have to pick their poison and then just swallow it. Because here's the thing with the DA: if they support Cape independence, for example, they come out and say they support Cape independence, they are basically severing. Well, in my initial view was it was like this, that they were severing their ties with the rest of everyone who believes in them in other provinces. But I thought about this about that, well, they can actually exist in South Africa as much as they support Cape independence as well. So yeah, so that yeah, it's their loss of even votes is also tied to how they are marketing themselves, how they message their policies. Because if you were to ask a person in the streets, so why did you vote for the DA, for example, or why did you vote for the ANC? They would give you reasons that may not be on the policy. So many people, they tend to not understand the policies of their parties. So if you do, and they understand them very well, but a lot of people who vote for parties tend to not know what they are voting for. So when they are met with a confrontation, let's say a more colorful EFF, for example, they're like, wow, okay, these guys have a stronger message than what I'm voting for, so I'm going to vote for those guys. So there's that dynamic of messaging. I always go back to this messaging thing because in my mind, that's what decides who wins in politics. How you craft your message and how you deliver it, that's what decides elections. So with these parties as well, whoever wants to win the Western Cape or whoever wants to be the majority in the Western Cape, they have to. Oh, sorry, excuse me. Their messaging has to be relatable to the people of the Western Cape. Otherwise, they'll be ignored completely. That's
Well, I
my
think what we're also saying, well, what we're seeing is, under Zuma, the opposition in some ways were able to unite, especially the liberal opposition in South Africa under the DA. I mean, you saw their vote share from 2009 to the 2016 municipal elections. In that 7-year period, they basically gained 10% of the vote, which was quite significant for them. They went from 16% to about 25, 26%. But since Cyril took over and Zuma went out, that's declined. I mean, they only got about 22% in 2019 and 55% in the province. And I think if we look at the 55% figure for the provincial elections, but in the national elections in the Western Cape, they only got 52%. So we could even end up in a position in 2024, I think, where the DA goes under 50% in the national election, but they might just stay above 50% in the provincial election, and that might have a serious dynamic that really
yeah.
changes the results. The ANC actually, it's weird. It seems like a lot of people, there's a small minority of people who want the ANC governing nationally, but they don't want the ANC governing provincially because the ANC has a far higher vote share when it comes to the national election, even though it's like the
Yeah.
same election on the same election day, but they do substantially lower, in the provincial election. But look, I think for the independence movement, focusing a lot more on the Freedom Front Plus gives us a lot of opportunities because it could create the framework, the operating system from which we can build an electoral force for 2024 for the independence movement. Because think about it, they've already got a lot of councillors, and that's probably going to increase in the coming, after the local elections. They've got 10 MPs nationwide. I think and they've got a number in the Western Cape. They've got a member of the provincial parliament. So if we could, what I really want to say, and I've made a number of posts on Instagram about this, I want to see there being a pro-independence coalition in the 2024 elections. I want, the Cape Party to be part of it. I want the Freedom Front Plus to be a part of it. Maybe there will be other parties that spring up in the next, few years that advocate for independence that I would like to see in that coalition. And there's also, there's these minor parties in the Western Cape. If you look at places like Lanesburg and Prince Albert municipality, you look at those places, they've got, local parties, Karoo parties. There's, they've got two municipal parties that, came second, third place. They actually take quite a lot of votes in these municipalities. If we can convince them to come to the independent side, I would, they would make a great part of the coalition. And there's also an interesting party that, we don't pay a lot of attention to, which is ICOSA. I mean, the ANC runs a couple of municipalities in the Western Cape, but it's quite bizarre. They only run Carnaland municipality and then no other municipality. Their support across the rest of the country is minimal. But it's weird, and it will be interesting to see if they ever come behind Cape independence, because it's very possible that if their support base is in Carnaland, and something like the Cape Party model of the Swiss canton system is implemented, then their political power in that area would increase substantially, which would have great potential for them. So yeah, that's what I'm hoping for to see in 2024. But I think that's 2024, this 2021. And there's going to be different voting patterns in between them. My opinion is that if you live outside of Cape Town, in the non-Cape Town parts of the Western Cape, then the Freedom Front Plus is probably the best party for you. However, if you live in Cape Town, I think because Cape Town has the larger, liberal English-speaking population, compared with especially the more rural parts of the province, the Cape Party message can be more inclusive in Cape Town, and that's why they're the better books there. And that's why I think if you're in Cape Town, you should support the Cape Party, and if you're in the Western Cape and the rest of the province, you should support the Freedom Front Plus. That's my pragmatic approach to it.
Yeah, I mean, that makes perfect sense. I mean, there is a party, as you know. I think this is something that we had mentioned last week. There's Al Jama. This party is, I would say, it's driven largely by its ideology, which is a Islamic ideology, and it says here it's a Islamic democracy. So even those guys, they can easily support Cape independence. As if say organizations like Capecord and CIAG perhaps might somehow convince those guys as well to jump on board and join the Cape independence movement, then that would be a plus, because there's a lot of Muslim people in Cape Town or in the Western Cape, and I mean it would actually give an impression that a lot of people actually do, actually not necessarily people, but people of different ideological inclinations actually want the same thing, thus breaking that idea of, well, it's just white people who want this, it's just white people who want to destroy the country, who want to divide the country. It breaks things like that. And also, another thing that I wish to see really, that it would be let's say a party that that has a lot of black people, because that too is a factor for us to consider, because the sense right now is that many black people, they vote for the ANC, and it seems like there is no alternative except the ANC. Of course, there is DA. There are many other black people, especially in the townships, who are voting for the DA. But the current frame now is that, well, the crossers of the black people, or the people in the townships, they are voting for the ANC. If there would be people who are vocal in the township, who are actually speaking for the Cape independence, that would be another game changer. again, breaking away the idea that this is an interest of of white people, because now this would make me wonder, the people who are against Cape independence, who uphold this idea that this is Cape independence is an idea of white people, what would they pivot to when they are arguing against Cape independence? That I'm interested in, because clearly they have no arguments against the motion of Cape independence. So, but the thing is, as much as they make the argument that this is a white people's movement, it's a movement that is being done by white people. They know that there are black people who actually want the Western Cape to be its own country. It's just that they are dishonest with themselves. They are not willing to admit a reality which is coming. You see, that's my thing. The coalition, yes, I'm looking for that, but I hope in the near future, different people come into the come to become vocal basically about their support. That would be a plus for the whole.
Well, with this coalition that I envision, I don't just envision, political parties being a part of it. I envision, independents being part of it. I imagine there's, civil society groups being part of it. So, local community groups in Kailicha being part of the coalition for the election.
Yeah.
Maybe one of their representatives would stand for the provincial parliament or even national parliament. That's what I envision. And I think, the real place where the Cape Independence movement is going to win is with the people who don't vote. I mean, if you look at a lot of these areas like Kailicha, I mean, 40% of people, we think of, you look at the results and it's something like 80% of people vote ANC. It's not really a true picture, because, 60% of people vote, 40% of people don't vote. So, 40% of the people in some of these areas don't vote. And that's where, those are the people who are just tired of politics. When they don't go from the ANC usually to another party, they just go from the ANC to not voting. So if we can re-inspire those people, if we can really get the message through to those people, that's where we win, quite frankly. I mean, if we can take advantage of that opportunity, we can win among the the non-voters. And that's how, by the way, Brexit was won in the UK. They won. They were able to find, I think, 3 million people who hadn't voted before, and they were able to get them to support Brexit. And that's how, Brexit won in the UK, and that's how we will win as well in the Western Cape. I strongly believe that when it comes to independence, we will win if we can take those votes.
Yeah, and it's quite clear that the parties that have been campaigning throughout these years for election, during election times, they don't know how to sell their policies or their ideas to these people who do not want to vote. And it seems that they don't know why these people don't vote. Well, there's obvious hypothesis that, people they've lost hope. That's something that I've heard people saying as a reason to why the people are not voting. People have lost hope in the political parties. Then it stands to reason that they want something like Cape independence. Then perhaps that's what they want. I mean, I foresee people coming to vote for, or basically vouching for Cape independence. And it's not that people are silent, because sometimes we may refer to these people as the silent majority. It's not necessarily that they are silent, it's just that they are groaning in pain, and it's pain that is being perpetuated by people who so happen to be the representative, or people who are in power, and their groans would be relieved by, I would say, radical movements like these, the motion to make the Western Cape.
It's because people don't have power. It's because people don't have power. I mean, it's a lack of control. It's a lack of ability to decide your own lives. I mean, if you look at the Western Cape, we haven't, for decades now. In fact, we've never really had a government that we've wanted. I mean, most people have waited. Before 1994, most people were disenfranchised, and after 1994, we haven't had a functional democracy because no party. The ANC's never won a majority in the Western Cape. So I feel, people, it's because it's a lack of control people have in their lives. I mean, after 1994, they thought that they would get more control over their lives. They would have, a greater say over the government. But in the Western Cape, that simply hasn't been the case. And I think that's why we are seeing turnout drop. A lot of people who, don't vote are still very politically engaged. They know what's going on. They just don't see any alternatives, and that's why we need to present the alternative. And when I do my campaigning, we find, if you look at places like the Riebeek Valley, I mean, turnout is absolutely pathetic here. I mean, in Riebeek Castile, where we did some leafleting today, it was about 52% turnout in the last elections. I think Riebeek West did a slightly better, but it was about 90%. We got about 80% support there. And I think, when you knock on someone's door, people are going to be more hostile to you if you're a political party. If you're a political movement or you're independent, if you're not associated with political parties, then people are far more likely to open their door to you, to speak to you. And I think that's where, we've got an advantage. I mean, think of it this way. When the referendum comes, who's going to be the people opposing independence? Who's going to be the people funding it? It's going to be the party establishment. It's going to be the ANC. It's going to be the DA establishment. You're going to have lots of DA councillors and MPs coming onto our side on independence, but you're going to get lots of people high up in the DA, people in the big business, in the big banks, in these big companies who are going to oppose it. And then, so we're going to have a grassroots movement full of people who are just passionate about the Western Cape, and then we're going to have to go up against, basically these establishment parties that people are quite frankly tired with. So it's going to be a perfect populist dynamic. When you look at these elections, or referendums, it usually works in our favour, and I think that's what we're going to see.
Yeah, you see, another thing that I'm thinking about, for example, with your campaigning specifically, or any campaigning for Cape independence, because people have realized that, well, these political parties, they're not giving us any power or any control. They're not motivating us at all. They are just there. They are just political parties. That's all they are. They might want to know then, well, how is this going to change my state right now? Because some people will ask that question, and I'm sure many people have asked. People will ask, well, how is this going to change my life right now? I'm living in a shack. How is Cape independence going to change my life? So with those questions, it would be I think it's crucial to then have a clear explanation as to how, because some people, as much as they might like the idea, they might not necessarily understand how it's going to pan out. Maybe they want to explain it to other people, but they don't know how to. So that then creates some kind of stagnation. So it would be very nice to craft a simple message that will be so easy it will be so easy even for a person who can't read or write, as long as they remember, like a story like kind of thing to embed in people's mind so that they may be able to tell that story to the other people. I think if we were to come up with something very nice, something that resonates with people, that the message would go on faster than we would probably anticipate. Yeah, that would be nice.
An anti-corruption message is definitely the most effective. I mean, if we look at the amount, and actually one thing I've been doing recently is I've been taking some rough estimates of how much corruption has cost, the Western Cape. If we look at some of the estimates that came out, Over the last 5 years, 1.5 trillion has been stolen through corruption. The Western Cape's contribution to the Western Cape economy is about 14%. So that's 210 billion over the last 5 years stolen. But we have the cleanest audits. And if we had more accountability in our government, which we don't have right now, it would be a lot lower even at the provincial level corruption. I mean, it's minimal. But it's 210
Can I say something?
Yeah.
Okay. Yes. So this is actually a conversation that I had with Marubani. I think last year. This is also on the website, for example, of the Cape Party or Cape Exit as well, with regards to the corruption that has been going on with the current government. So you see this kind of message or explanation. So it makes sense, or it's easily understandable to someone, let's say the middle class people, let me put it like that. Middle class people will understand. Or even better, taxpayers. Taxpayers will be like, yeah, corruption, it's bad, it has to be stopped. But for someone who's just living their life, they might ask, wait, what is corruption? they probably know, but it's like they don't care whether there's corruption or not. Some people will go to the length of asking, how am I going to get money at the end of the month? So also, that's one thing that we'd have to take into consideration. Corruption, yes. The messaging has to be catered for each, let's say, class. For each class, a societal class. The working class
That's what I've been doing. So I've been trying to break down the figures on what we could have bought with that money. So, for example, it was 42 billion rands we've lost. The Western Cape loses each year due to corruption. I mean, I saw one and we need more professional people to get calculations for this. But I think I saw something like it's cost 15 million rands to build a school. So with that money, you could have built, with 42 billion rands, you could have built 3,000 schools nearly. You could have employed something like 130,000 nurses. Now, these are numbers that we aren't going to actually even need, but it just puts into perspective in a normal person's mind how much money we are simply losing. And when I speak to people in communities, I speak about how, and I saw this, I went to this one person's house. The storm had just hit a few days before. Well, it was still hitting in some ways the community when we were campaigning. Her roof was, she lived in a shack. Her roof was flooding. There was water pouring through, and housing was clearly a key concern for her. Now we were losing this 42 billion rands a year due to corruption. We could put billions of rands into housing. We could put billions of rands into education. We could have put billions of rands into all of these public services, and that's even before we even start solving the problems in the Cape. When I look at Cape independence, I say it's not the solution, but it's the platform for the solutions that we can have. It gives us the power to create these solutions. However, by just leaving the mere fact of leaving South Africa, what it does, it gives us a bonus check almost when it comes to cutting back on this, this wasted public expenditure, being able to, prevent this corruption, being able to stop being a net contributor to the South African national budget. All this money coming back into the Western Cape is just the bonus budget and gives us some reserves to tackle those problems. But those are the messages that I used when I go into, especially more poorer communities. And from my experience, it was quite effective, especially when we had 80% support in this one community. And I say it's the forgotten communities because the areas where the DA take them for granted and the ANC don't care about them, and that's where we're going to do very well.
Yeah. Okay. No, I should have waited for you to finish. I was too hasty. Yeah, but that's a very perfect way of explaining it, because then they get a sense of what's actually wrong. Especially people who are concerned with wanting to have money, so they will get a sense that, well, there's money being lost, and it could have come to you. So yeah, that's actually clever. That's actually good. Yeah, I mean, this is this is one of the. I mean, corruption is one of the big problems in the country, and I mean even among parties. And it's one of those things where the people on the ground, or anyone actually, except the people who are in power who are doing this corruption, we kind of have no. It's like there's nothing we can do about it. So now when we give, then when we promise people that there is something they can actually do about it, then that that kind of spark some kind of sense that hey, I actually do have the power to dictate the future of my family by choosing an alternative to what's currently happening. Because even those who are in opposition, they can't really do much. As much as they are going to court in and out, they get rejected by the courts. It's as if they have no power, even though they themselves are in power. So then, by offering the alternative of Cape independence, definitely this gives a sense of power to people. This is why I like the idea of of Cape independence. I mean, that's why I'm still voicing my opinion about it. It's not trivial, and it kind of speaks to the article that Ivo Fechter wrote that Cape independence. It I think I'm under correction here. He said something like it it it's not necessarily political, but it's a socio-economic approach because by being independent, then the Western Cape will be able to take care of its poor people. I actually like that approach because it helps people understand that people are poor, and for us to solve this problem, we have to get rid of these what these hurdles that are put by government. And for us to do that, we can't form a new party to do that because there's parties already that are failing to do that. So it's just better to just be independent. And yeah, that's like the ultimate solution. And I have friends who disagree with the idea of Cape independence. They have this vision of unity. And I don't know if you saw my tweets yesterday saying, well, the idea of unity, humans don't thrive on unity, we thrive on partitions, division. Not necessarily divisions as in we are away from each other. We it's that phrase, but used correctly, that uh, our diversity is our strength, but not like our ethnic diversity, but intellectual diversity. That's true strength, and of course diversity in general. That is strength. The fact that we are different and can come together and agree on something and actually work towards it for the sake of helping out people who are poor and who actually need help. That is strength to me. And my
Well,
friends
the
don't
Cape independence,
agree.
we are a very
Yeah.
ideologically diverse movement at the end of the day. I mean, we have people, I mean, on Twitter, as I've said, we've had people who are communists, literal communists, who support the
Mm.
movement because they like the idea of more community control. I mean, look, have you heard of Marxist, or his name was Marxist Zede, Sankara Marx? Do you remember?
I
Have you seen?
think I've seen that account on Twitter.
Yeah, he
Marxist.
supports Cape. Well, he's at least said that he like. I mean, if the people want it, they should have it, kind of thing. And then
Mm.
we have people even on Capecord who are literal anarcho-capitalists. I mean, they don't believe the state should exist at all. So I mean, this
Mm.
we're basically everyone from across the political spectrum. Can be part of the Cape independence movement. There's no ideological, barriers to it. I mean, but there is one of the core values that we just share is that we believe that the decisions, are best made by the people that are going to be affected by them. So, the decisions, that affect the Western Cape should be taken by, the Western Cape, not by politicians in a faraway capital, in
Mm.
Pretoria, for example.
Yeah,
Um,
I mean, it speaks to that thing of giving power to their people. Or it's not necessarily giving power. People have the power; they just have to exercise it. Now, as you were saying, also that Cape Independence is a platform to exercise. It's a platform to literally exercise that power that you granted by the Constitution. Yeah. But anyway, you can continue. I think I cut you off.
Well, no, look, what I think we're going to see is when we get the referendum, for many people, in some ways, it will be the first time that they've been able to take control of a decision that's affected them, at least for the last few decades. I mean, think of the last, 10 years. I mean, you had Zuma, which the ANC, which the Western Cape rejected, who became president. Then we had, all these crises, that, we had very little ability to stop. We, in 2009, we rejected the ANC. In 2011, we rejected the ANC. 2014, we rejected the ANC. In 2016, then Cyril took over, and there was so much optimism around him. Everyone was so optimistic that South Africa would finally be on track. And there was even articles I remember seeing in the Daily Maverick where they asked, could the Western Cape be taken by the ANC? And then they got their lowest vote share here than they ever did. So that was clearly off. But now, and then we have lockdown, which, it was a decision taken by the national executive. The Western Cape never had ability to deal with that. Often, a lot of these policies were absolutely disastrous. I mean, they're probably going to be responsible for the loss of thousands of jobs in the wine industry because of the stupid laws that they passed around it. I mean, tens of thousands of jobs in the hospitality industry.
So you see, South Africa is not a country that has people who want to take accountability for anything that they've done. We've seen in the state commissions. What is it called? The state capture commissions. Those people, it's obvious that they did the thing. They were part of the corruption. They just don't remember anything. It's so funny. Or they didn't see that they signed thing.
It was with Cyril's speech, when he gave the speech for what's causing the riots, the inequality, the poverty, the corruption, I don't know if he said corruption, but he said the unemployment. I mean, you're responsible for that. That's been you for the last 27 years responsible for that, and you're causing these problems.
The crazy one.
Like, yeah.
The crazy one was pretty clear when he said, actually, I don't know. That was funny. I was like, oh my goodness. So he does not know who he was being asked who was the leader of not the leader but the head of this state security agency or something like that. And he was like, I don't know. I was like, yeah. These people, what do they know? What do they know? Because if they continue with this, I don't know. I don't remember. I don't remember signing it. I didn't know that it was for this. It was. You get to see that these people, it's like it's their template of a way to escape. It's a way for them to escape accountability, and they're so good at it. So because of that culture of not being held accountable, I mean, we saw Duduzane Zuma as well. He said people should loot. He said that those who are looting, they should do so responsibly. And how is he going to be held accountable if he is sued by the DA, for example, as the DA has done so? I'm telling you right now, he's not going to go to jail. The court, the burden of proof will be on the DA or on the state or on the DA, and the DA will lose that battle actually because they won't be they. I have a sense that they won't be able to prove that what he said is a result of whatever happened afterwards, even though the evidence is there. He was literally encouraging the looters. So the sense of accountability is gone. So we're in that situation right now, and the good thing is that we can still do something about it. While we still can do something about it, the only thing we can do right now is secession, Cape independence. Of course, that requires a lot of work. It's bloody rough work. Some people don't understand.
I just want to say, you mentioned to designer Zuma, something quite funny that happened just a few minutes before we started recording. I checked Twitter,
Mhm.
and I saw that there was a Twitter spat going on involving Cole Newhouse, but I couldn't access his Twitter account, and the reason
Oh,
was I've been blocked by Cole Newhouse on Twitter. He's blocked
oh,
me. So
wow.
it's quite nice to see that I've been blocked. And another thing that's quite funny, and I feel like. I enjoyed seeing it. I wasn't even annoyed when I saw this earlier today,
Mm,
but I was walking down my street after I delivered all the leaflets. Now, a lot of the leaflets were either gone or were still in their gates. A lot of the people we saw, a few minutes after we left the house, we saw them coming to the gate and taking it. But then I saw one,
mm.
like someone was really very angry, so they'd crumpled the leaflet up and threw it on the ground.
Ooh,
So I've taken that back, and it's almost like a victory symbol because someone was really annoyed by that. Someone who knows about
wow.
Cape Independence, who lies about it
Uh,
and knows that it's growing popular.
the,
They just
you see,
crumpled this up. It was.
to me, that's how you measure your success by the level of negativity that you're receiving. You know that you're actually making an impact or some kind of progress that you can actually measure. Now, that is positive to me. That's like positive feedback to me. That
Yeah,
would
it
matter.
was.
Yeah.
Look, and I mean, I speak to, I've spoken to a number of people, and I mean, it's nice to see that there isn't like an age split because with certain political movements, like for example Brexit and Trump in America, it's usually the younger people that oppose, these certain movements, and then it's the older people that support it. I haven't seen any age split really. With the independence movement, I don't think that's really a factor in this. I mean, older people and younger people, from my interactions, they're both incredibly positive about it. And again, that's another really positive thing to see. I mean, if you can get but however, the problem is the Freedom Front Plus. They are heavily balanced towards older people.
Mm,
That I think they really struggle
mm,
among younger supporters, which puts them
mm.
in a very uncomfortable position for the future because it limits their growth potential. And that's something that's
Yeah.
quite challenging for them. But I want to go back to the Freedom Front Plus. So
Mm,
Rob
okay.
Persov was interviewing earlier this week on his Smutby group, Corne Mulder, who is the Freedom Front Plus um, leader in the Western Cape. And
Okay.
I like, and the Freedom Front Plus, they were talking about how in South Africa there's different levels of self-determination that can be reached. So obviously, the Western Cape has a very great amount of self-determination they can reach. They can reach full independence, and that's what the Western Cape Freedom Front Plus supports. However, in Limpopo, for example, they can't achieve full self-determination, but the different, the vendor and the other groups, they might be able to achieve a more greater self-determination within the structure of South Africa. And that was something that I
Mm.
found, very positive, that they're not just pushing for self-determination and more autonomy for the Western Cape, but it's across the country. And
Ah.
what and I
Mm.
like to see that. I like to see that message coming out. It's great to see. I mean, then they're not really they're pushing for minorities. And if you look at South Africa in many ways, we're all minorities. I mean, Zulus are minorities, the Boers are minorities. I mean, if we look for a purely racial lens, then of course, Black people are the majority. But if you look at a more cultural and
Yeah.
ethnic lens, then we are all minorities in South Africa at the end of the
Mm.
day. I mean,
That's an interesting
as I said,
approach, by the way. Interesting
we're
one.
like we're as I said, we're a family of nations, but a very unhappy one.
Mm. Yeah, that's true, man. Yeah, I mean, that is a very interesting approach. I never thought of it like that, and I think that's what some people make a mistake of by treating black people as an umbrella with the same brush, just saying, "Hey, you are this, therefore you are highly likely to support this. If you support this, you're not part of us. You are an outsider." It's bad. It's bad how they think of differing views or differing views that have not been assumed in their sphere of influence. Yeah, it's bad. So whenever someone comes up with a different kind of point of view, yeah, it becomes hectic. Like, how? Why are you supporting those people? Like, there's this friend of mine who always asks. I always tell him, yeah, I do support the movement. He goes, but why? Why would you? And then I gave him the message I sent him. I think I sent him a picture. Forgot the term of the or that is used. It's a Japanese thing where a broken plate or a cup is then mended with gold. It's put together using gold. The term for it is a Japanese term. Basically, the cup is not valuable, of course. It's not that valuable before it's broken. And when it shatters, and then it has these what these these fragments put together, but there's these partitions and they're made out of gold. And that thing is so expensive more than when it was. So I sent that kind of message to him saying that we have to fracture in order for us to be united. That was what I said to him. That's my rendition of why the Western Cape has to be separate from South Africa. Because that will actually create an environment where we will both be valuable. South Africa, the rest of South Africa, and the Western Cape will be of higher value. This is like a natural phenomenon, man. It's so scientific. You know, when you break things up, or even plastic, when you break plastic, it becomes hot. So it's like a principle of nature.
Well,
So to
it's
speak.
similar to Brexit and the European Union. I mean, look, the Brexit voters do not hate Europe. They do not hate Europeans. They do not hate people who live in the European Union.
Exactly.
But they want to have free trade with Europe. They want to have good relations. However, they just don't
Yeah.
want to be governed by other people. And I think it's the
Literally
same within
that.
Europe.
Yeah.
They want people to govern themselves. I mean, we see this across the world. We see this in Catalonia. We see this in, the Western Cape. We see this in most every country in the world has some sort of secessionist movement within it, because people believe that the best decisions that they can make are the decisions that affect them, or the decision they make themselves. And
Yeah.
it's great autonomy, and that's what we see in Europe. I think Europe, if the European Union were to slowly fragment and break apart over time, and people could return to a system where you have independent nations freely trading with one another, being good friends and good neighbors, then I
Yeah.
think that would work well. And I think the same applies in South Africa. As you said, we'd come out
Mm.
stronger, more united in some ways, if we were
Yeah.
broken
Actually,
up. Oh, we
actually,
could, if
I
we
think that
could
should
trade it.
I think that should be our slogan.
What slogan?
Yeah, that when we are divided, the more we'll be united.
Well, look, I feel like the term "divided" is quite is a controversial term. Like the term divided. Wait, it's united we stand, divided we fall. It's actually, you should invert it the other way: divided we stand, united we fall. And that's the way. That is the way that it's true.
we
That, I
have
mean,
to,
look, if you look at South
yeah,
Africa.
we have to change history. I see, even that phrase just said, "United we stand, divided we fall." I think times have literally changed to be flipped around. That divided we stand. It's that thing. Yeah, it speaks to the principle of individualism. It kind of empowers that independence. The more like when you're independent, you are even able to provide for those who are around you. It's that principle. So look, uh, by on our next episode, I will come up with some slogan that's similar to that to those lines. I'm telling you, it's gonna be fire.
Yeah,
I know.
we need some strong slogans like that. I mean, we really need to
Yeah,
be. I mean, look, I've got a number of contacts in
yeah.
those groups like Free the Western Cape. Who make that great content that goes out to hundreds of thousands of people.
I'll
I
I'll
mean, we
I'll,
need
I'll
to
propose a
maybe some
few.
work there. We need to have some work
Yeah.
there between you and them, and we can really
Mm.
get that pushed out. By the way, did you see on Robin Kabinak's Twitter the comparison between the US Defense Secretary and South African Defense Secretary and the
Oh my
qualifications?
goodness. Her experience is that she was a high school teacher and she is responsible for, oh, bruh.
She's also a Zumaite, I believe. I think she's in the Zuma faction, and that's why there's been. I think I remember seeing an article a few months, two articles in the space of an hour. It had one with Cyril Ramaphosa saying this was a coup, and then a
Wow.
few, half an hour later, she comes out and says it wasn't a coup. So it's just absolutely chaotic. I mean, the U.S. Defense Secretary, he had 40 years military experience.
Dude.
I mean, that's experience. But I mean, I
Dude.
can tell you on the CIAG platforms, it's gone absolutely viral. That I mean,
Oh
literally
my
hundreds of thousands
goodness.
of people have seen it from the CIAG. So it's opening up independence to new audiences as people just see
Yeah.
how important the current situation is.
Yo,
But yeah,
that is, I mean, here's the thing is one would expect someone in that position to have some kind of experience, maybe during during apartheid, they something, just anything, just a hint, at least something, Jay, or they've handled a gun.
well, he said like maybe like 10, even if it
Boy,
was 10 years military experience or something like, or even 5 years,
I
just
would have
something,
been
not
happy with
prescribed,
2 years,
not,
my
not,
guy. Yo,
not just
Ziv,
prescribed.
yeah, I, dude, some things will forever be shocked.
I mean, but shocking things. I mean, I've said this before. The group that does more to advance Cape independence, more than Cape Exit, more than the Cape Party, more than CIAG, is News 24. Because every morning that someone logs onto News 24, just sees the
Mm,
absolute shit show of articles that pop up. It just makes you support independence. I mean,
yeah,
you can't. If you
they
see all that,
they
you
are
can't
our
support.
strongest supporters. They
There,
are our
there are
strongest supporters. Yeah.
News 24 is a propaganda arm. I mean, if you think about it, I mean, all the news articles that come out there, it just really pushes people into the independence camp. I mean, people just
Yeah.
can't support the current system the way things are going. So I've said that, semi humorously, but there is an element of truth to it.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, man. Yeah, definitely. They should just keep doing what they're doing. And of course, there's I don't know how the relationship goes, man. Because my impression of News 24, for example, it's like they have people who are against keep independence and whatnot, or the organization itself. But and then Phil Craig just publishes the responses or articles about Cape independence on there. That surprised me. Like, oh, okay, snap! They actually allowed this. I think they want to appear as if they are impartial. They accept everyone. Of course, we know they are quite biased, but I think also they are kind of preparing a spot for themselves to say, "Hey, we didn't buy your articles from from our newspaper and whatnot."
Well, the thing I love about News 24 is that when you see these, hostile anti-independence articles that occasionally pop up on the website, they're always behind the paywall. And then when Phil Craig responds to it, it's behind a paywall sometimes on News 24, but you can access the non-paywall article on the
Yeah,
CIAG website. So it
yeah,
just gets so everyone can see our response for free, but they can't see the original article for free. So it just helps us ultimately.
yeah. Yeah, those are our. That's big. Year 24 is basically I mean, it is part of the arsenal. It's our ammunition. I mean, even these podcasts are part of that as well. I'll, I want to be as visible as I possibly can, man, so that the message can be stronger and it can be more clearer, because that's one thing that has to be in people's minds, a clear message what this thing is about. When they are being asked by someone, they know it's about A, B, and C. Yeah, because people love simple messages.
Well, look,
Keep it
I mean,
simple.
I saw in America, for example, when you had Trump, from what I heard one article where it said that in 2016 he got $5 billion of free airtime due to the media, and like 5 billion because he was able to play them so well, and
Mm.
he had very simple messages, and it's amazing how it all clicks together because he had a very simple message. So, for example, he would say something like "Make America Great," "We're going to become so big and strong and amazing," and he wouldn't pause, he wouldn't make breaks, but he would repeat himself over and over again, which just reinforces that message. So he appears
Yeah.
confident, and he has his message reappeared over and over again, and he gets all that media coverage from that, repetitive message. So that's really helped him when he was running for president. And so I
Yeah,
think
it's
playing the
interesting.
media is an art in many ways.
Mm.
Um, but that's the mainstream media, and we've also got to build up this alternative media to take
Yeah,
on the mainstream media when it comes to independence. We do need to build this
yeah.
arsenal of independent
Especially
voices, and it's growing.
Yeah, especially when they try to twist the words that were said, let's say in a podium or some sort. We are here to correct them. Say, hey, this was actually not said. This is what was. This is what was said by whoever. Because they
Well,
do this editing. They cut out the important parts and they propaganda stuff one.
you can see the propaganda machine is starting to work more and more and more on their side. What's that cartoon? Not that cartoon. The puppet called the ENCA puppet. Was it SABC?
Chester missing.
Missing, Chester missing.
Yeah, yeah.
There was a tweet that came out from that Twitter account a few days ago where they obviously, they went for really cheap political points and compared the CIAG flag to the Confederate flag, and just tried to
Oh,
do that weak messaging. And look, it was
here's what
pathetic. Uh,
here's what I like about
yeah,
that. What I like is that number one, people either don't know about the Confederate flag or they don't even care. Number two is advertising, CIAG, which is great. As you know, there's no such thing as bad publicity.
yeah. I
Great.
mean, look, if
This
you look at
is nice.
Instagram, the hundreds of accounts that were posting to their stories report this account at Let's Free the Cape. Like they would tag in the story the CIAG Instagram account, so
Mm,
more people would go to it. So it was completely self-defeating.
that is
Instead of
nice.
getting the account taken
That
down, they just actually grew the follower base of the entire account, which was hilarious to see.
and
But
also
yeah.
and yeah, that's just one last one from it says so Chester missing that guy took that picture of the country, the map with the Western Cape cut out with a scissor and the rest of the country with poop and fire and with the ANC logo. And he said the only real takeaway from this is that racists can't afford graphic designers. That I was like, what? This is great as well. That was another good advertising. I don't know if these people realize that they are advertising for Cape Independence whenever they come out and try to attack because people can see, they can tell, people realize and they can see that this person is not offering any critique or because I mean that graphic design is actually good.
Yes,
People
it's
read.
better than a lot of political advertising I see in
Yeah.
South Africa. It's high
I'm telling
quality.
you. Yeah,
Well, look,
definitely.
we've got where we've got about an hour now. It's coming to an end, but I'll just finish off
Yes.
the podcast by saying keep a very close eye on the independence movement over the next 1 to 2 weeks. Keep an eye on
Mm-hmm.
Capecord, keep an eye on CIG's platforms because a lot of big stuff is going to come out. Remember
All
we
right.
reached the polling goal for we've reached the fundraising goal for the polling last week.
Yeah.
That's being conducted, I think, at the moment, from what I've heard. So, we might see some big things coming out there. We don't know what the results are going to be. It could go back. It could backfire. I mean, it's really, it's so much suspense at the moment. So hopefully, within the next few
Yeah,
weeks, we'll have some results there,
let's
and it could change
we
the
will
game even
see.
further than it's already been changed. And also,
Yeah.
Capecord might have some big announcements coming out. So keep an eye on that. But it's always great to have you, Nati, as my co-host on the show. We hope that we can, boost the views on this. We got about 75 views on the first episode, so
Oh,
but it's a new podcast. It's
yeah, yeah,
it,
yeah.
it will take some time for us to grow, but remember
Yeah,
to like
definitely.
and share this video on all the platforms, on YouTube, on Twitter, on Facebook. Remember to subscribe to our channel, comment below, join Capecord, discord.link/Capecord, join the server, get involved in the discussion and the debate. Even if you're not an independent supporter, we've had a number of, hostile people joining the server. Well, not hostile. I mean, that's a bit of a tough word, but critics of independence. We've had some hostile people join us. We had this one guy who just came up with absolutely ridiculous. He was trying to find reasons to accuse us of resurrecting apartheid, and he couldn't actually provide any evidence. So that was quite humorous to see. And then he actually, again, it's that free publicity thing. He posted on his subreddit about how this was a cesspool of a Discord server, how these people are literally planning to bring back apartheid. Go and see for yourself. Here's the Discord link. So more people can come on the server. They actually speak to us and engage with us. They can see this guy's full of shit. And
Some
then,
people.
hopefully we gain a few more independent supporters from that. So, it really helps us. But thanks, guys, for watching the show, and keep involved in the movement. Remember, the time for action is now. Get into your communities, get those leaflets out, whether it's for Cape Exit, CIAG, Cape Party. Get the message out, because this message is very, popular. It's very hot. The only, thing that's holding us back at the moment with independence is just not enough people know about it. The more people that know about it, the stronger we will be as a movement.